We can go ahead and definitely get started. It's five of. Definitely
Okay.
can go ahead and get started, and there's going to be a lot of Q&A. So yeah, we can go ahead and get started. And as people triggering, you might have to repeat some things, but it's all right.
Yeah, that's no problem. I mean, we it's all good. Guys, I'm gonna
Oh
go ahead
man.
and get started. What this session is about is to talk about mining opportunities in on the continent of Africa. But what we'll also do is kind of give you a synopsis of what the Mine Plus group does, what I'm a part of, and then we invest into small mining projects through an entity called MFD. So it'll be a mixture of what we do and then how we actually go and approach to our investments for our fund. And then probably show a snapshot of some different projects that are on the continent, and then there's one that's not on that continent because we're not just in Africa, but we're all over. But we're pretty we're pretty concentrated in on the continent of Africa and expanding that even more. I can go ahead and get started.
By all means, sir, please.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my okay. So our mission with the Mind Plus group is to add $40 billion to the bottom line of mining companies, and it's through the consulting arm. I just want to take us really down to here, and one of the things we do is improve mining development and investments. Uh, Through the investments, we focus on cash flow uh, and get the cash flow quickly with the opportunity for large exploration upside. And then we provide, a way to actually get involved in our investments. Mining is very capital intensive, but the way we do it, it's still capital intensive, but we keep that in mind to keep the projects a little smaller so we can reduce the risk. So if you look at the Mind Plus group as a whole, there's 5 different business units. You've got MFD Holdings, which we'll talk about that most of the time today. You got Mind Plus Consulting. I run this area, the Mind Plus Consulting branch of the business units for Mind Plus Group. Then there's some software support for mega projects that supports what we do. Um, you have Eber Insights, which provides newsletter services for junior mining companies. Junior mining companies require unique marketing to drum up interest in investments, and I'll explain why that's heavily needed. And then finally, Pixac Marketing. We put out some different posts, things like that through the Mind Plus Group, highlighting different areas in mining and specifically catered towards junior miners. So if you look at the team here, this is on the consulting branch. So you got yours truly at the top there, primarily focusing in on sales and mainly sales, and some more work in operations. Team here of experts. We've got a metallurgist, which is Joanna, Nikos, which is a geologist. I worked with both of these people, by the way, and Kostas, who is one of the best process plant engineers out there in the country. Branimir is a commercial and procurement contracts guy, and then Rosa is project services, which we provide for clients as well. Supporting these people are about 40 plus different subject matter experts and consultants out there that we have globally that work on these projects. And then to tie all that together, we've got the Hermes software that provides for project service type software. If we get into exploration and geological support, and I'll explain if you got questions, just kind of chime in and then I'll answer these. I'm trying to keep it not so technical, but some things I have to be. Festos is for geological support of surveys and samples. And then Pixax marketing, as I explained, that's to support the to drum up more interest in the stock and the shares or in the investment in junior mining companies. So combined, this group and his team's probably got 200 plus years experience. Okay, some of the clients, okay, Tola, go ahead. I see your
Quick
hand.
question.
Yeah.
Can you explain what the on the previous screen you had I'm sorry, yes, metallurgist, if I'm saying that word correctly?
That's a metallurgist. What a metallurgist does, guys,
Thank
and
you.
that's a good question. And feel free, just chime in. I want this to be informal. It's not a, it's not a formal presentation. I want feedback, and I'll ask for that. But a metallurgist is a person that actually analyzes and manages the way you extract the metals away from each other. So to put it in layman's terms, let's say you got a big rock, and inside that rock you may have pieces of gold, you got silver, you've got lead, you've got zinc, and you've got all these other different minerals. You got stuff that you don't want in there, maybe some granite and some other things. And what a metallurgist does is they're the ones that can determine what type of other extracts or things that can extract those minerals or whatever minerals you want out of the ore that's fed to a process plant. And so essentially they're just kind of like, for the lack of a better word, they're kind of like chemists that focus on geological pieces on rocks, basically. But
Thank you.
yeah, that's what they do. That's essentially what they do. They usually in what's called a process plant, and I'll explain kind of the basics of mining a little bit later. But they're very critical to making money. Go ahead, Abu.
Yeah, so thank you for this. So consulting, so you consult mining pits, mining companies. You don't
Actually, that's a good question. If you go back here, we consult, but we also invest.
Okay.
So we own some assets, and that's what we're going to focus more on that. But the consulting branch supports these guys. And we can also take this and go out to outside clients. As we grow, and we had a conversation about this today, we're probably going to start scaling down on consulting outside clients as our portfolio here is growing and focus only on key accounts with the consulting on. We haven't got there yet, but that was always the strategy to eventually exclusively work with these guys and have really key accounts that we support outside of MFD.
What are you interested in terms of mining? I know that we have some folks on the line. Chukwuka.
Yeah, and then and I'll get to that, but mainly we're looking at a lot of precious metals. We got some critical minerals as well, like silica. I got an example of that. We're looking at copper as well, which is more on the critical side. And so, but our bread and butter right now is the precious metals. And the reason why gold, silver is probably more our focus as opposed to maybe copper is because of capital costs. In order to mine copper and process copper, it takes huge capital expenditures, much higher than gold, and probably a lot more complex, believe it or not, than to process or to get gold. Copper can have multiple different alloy mixes and all kinds of things, whereas gold is essentially almost gold. Gold and silver is it's not much variation. Go ahead, Tola.
Thank you so much. Just as far as when you were talking about the consultant and the investment side, aren't that, from what I've been told, I thought it was better to be a consultant in this space than it was, because like you talked about on the investment side, how capital intensive it is, that it would be better to just consult and be able to come in as you want and go instead of having to own and do all the regulatory compliances with this?
Well, the think about it this way, and just put it in perspective. Let's say I own a shopping mall or whatever, or I'm buying a shopping mall. Let's say that. And then I got real estate agents, I got maybe a developer, a builder, and who makes the lion's share of the cash?
The developer.
The owner. Developer gets a
Oh,
6% fee. The owner makes the lion's share of the money. They take the most risk too, and they're taking most of the risk. But these other players, developers, consultants, and real estate agents, they get a percentage of the money. And so if we go back here again to here, Mind Plus Consulting, reason why we're starting to scale back on clients that we're servicing and only key accounts. These key accounts are probably we're probably expected to generate, 7, 8 figure amounts in fees from them over a certain period of time, usually years. If they're not at least meeting that 7 figure threshold, we're going to start discarding and not dealing with them, because it just the lemon's not worth the squeeze, and to keep the focus here on the investment side. But you are right as far as the risk and everything else. Abu?
Yeah, what's your
thank
average investment size in terms of projects?
Okay. Yeah, let's do this. Let me take us through that, because
Okay.
I go through that. Let me take us through this presentation, and I promise we can have at it, because you're asking questions that is in the deck that answers that, and it answers what we're looking for, how we go about doing it, all those kind of things. And so I'll take us through that, and if we don't mind, let's just hold those questions and then write them down or whatever, and then you can ask them, and I'll do the best I can to answer them. I should be able to answer them.
Oh, we can put them in the chat and we can wait to the end if you would like as well.
Yeah, well, they don't even have to do that. They can just fire away at it. At me. That's the way I like it, and then we can go from there. So this is just a group of different companies that we've worked with. I'm just going to highlight a few. Element 79, they're down in Peru. They mine silver and gold. We're going to be doing a process plant with these guys. Alpha HPA, this is a unique opportunity. They produce what's called, the HPA stands for high purity alumina. And that's used, it's made from aluminum, obviously, and it's more of a high concentrate, specialized aluminum alloy that makes the chassis of electric vehicles. It makes it's inside LED lights. It's inside microchips. It makes cell phone glass, or glass that's non-scratch and that kind of thing. So we just started with these guys, and it was about a 6-month process. And then finally here, this is the mothership. This one, we're leading the whole thing, and it's a $300 million project that we're assisting with selecting the EPC. We're doing the project controls and the procurement. We're also bringing in engineers and everything else, and we're getting a piece of that. So we are essentially the executive lead for these guys. And what they do is convert garbage to biofuels. Very interesting green project that we're very excited to participate in. And so this just right here is just the in-house software we got. You got Hermes and you got Festos. Festos more geological focused, more technical. This is more, Hermes is more project management, project services, and manages everything. And when you're talking about mega projects, so many different moving parts and players in that. These projects are typically, at least 100 million plus, as far as the size and everything of the construction, and lots of different scope, lots of different people and everything else. So takes a big team to manage those. So what we do, and it's three different things. We provide technical support, project management, and JV equity partnerships, which is the investment side. Reason why I have it circled, because we're going to focus on this more in this discussion. And so let's talk about kind of why this makes sense and why it's an exciting opportunity to be in mining. And here's some challenges. There's been a bear market, believe it or not, for the last 15 years in the mining space, especially junior miners. And so what does that mean? That means deals are out there, very attractive valuations that you can make money in. We are acquiring assets, pennies on the dollar, essentially. And so what has happened is, since you've had a bear market, it's dried up all the capital. So it's not a lot of money out there. And so a little bit of money can get you something. The lack of capital and no major exploration is a problem, because there's a huge demand for projects, and I'll get to that later. Without exploration or development, you can't get minerals. You can't get new minerals. And that's going to be a problem, especially with the need to supply carbon emission initiatives, or the reduction of carbon emissions, which is definitely in global demand right now. Companies are struggling to complete their projects. Lack of capital, lack of expertise. Not a lot of people that know how to do this kind of work are entering the space, because it's not as sexy as some of the other industries that's been out there. And then a panic. As things start to go down, people panic and they typically rush into other areas that are hot. And so this has exacerbated this problem. So all in all, these things equal opportunity from a macro standpoint. If we look at the global demand for economic fundamentals, what we see is that, in my opinion, and well, it's just common sense, there's going to be money coming back into this sector because we need minerals. Why we need minerals? Because the global community is demanding it. They want to reduce carbon emission. People, despite what you might see on TV or certain areas that you may live in, most people are demanding cleaner air, and less reliance on fossil fuels. Doesn't mean quitting using fossil fuels. By no means it doesn't. But they just want more of a blend and a difference in that. So one of the strategies in order to reduce carbon emissions is to go to electric vehicles. Again, despite what you might believe, or some people have this, I don't know, they're against electric vehicles. Electric vehicles, by the way, is a better technology. You don't put gas in the car, and it's got better maintenance performance, because it's less moving parts to build the car. So less parts, less complexity, the less complex it is, the less maintenance you're going to need. And there's already studies coming out with that. And then they perform better. Again, they just flat out perform better. I had one time a European sports car, 2-door, 8-cylinder Mercedes SL, and rode in my friend's Tesla one time, 4 doors, baby seat in the back, all that stuff. This car could go faster than my car in 0 to 60, and for a fraction of the price, and could carry golf clubs and everything else, and I couldn't. And so that's when I realized that I better wake up and embrace this technology. So if you have electric vehicles, and I had mentioned before what HPA is, you need minerals to build these. You need minerals to build infrastructure. You need minerals to build a lot of things. And a lot of times people say, well, what about crypto? Well, crypto is a good opportunity as well, but crypto can't build things. You can't make a cell phone with cryptocurrency. You can't make a power plant or a vehicle or anything with that. And so you're going to need old-fashioned, good old minerals to build these. And as I said before, these are some of the critical minerals out there. You're also going to need precious metals too. If anybody heard of bricks, I've seen a lot of conversation around bricks in the chat group. And so that's currencies that are gold backed. central governments are buying gold at record levels and at record prices because currencies are not worth as much as they used to be, and they're not going to be. And that's part of the reason why we've seen the inflation. It's not just all price gouging and everything else, but your currencies is just worth less. And the easiest way to an example to say that is that, you know, a bar of gold could have bought you a house 80 years ago. It was worth maybe $2,000 for a bar of gold bullion. Now a bar of gold bullion is worth probably $500,000. So the gold hasn't depreciated, the currency has. A gold bullion bar can still buy you a house, but $2,000 can't buy you a house anymore, if I get the picture. And so then that leads to governments providing earmarks and everything else. In the United States, they passed an infrastructure bill for $3 trillion. That money's going to be spent. It's going to require minerals to build the infrastructure that everybody's demanding. And so that's the reason why at the end you need more exploration, more projects, and everything else, which is going to lead to increase of value in these mining companies. So looking at this graph here, and then is that in 2020, these critical minerals here, the demand was somewhere around here, and these are in thousands of metric tons, by the way. And so now we're in 2024. The demand is expected to be here in 2030. So how are we going to get from here to here? Simple question, guys. We got to mine. We got to mine. They're going to be small and short. And the beauty of that is, even if you're doing small projects, right, it's a commodity. So gold is gold. Silver is silver. Cobalt is cobalt. It may be some quality issues or things that someone would demand. Lithium's lithium, copper. There's some different alloys, but it's essentially almost the same. So it's not going to have, you're not going to have any problems with competing with a larger company that can make better copper than you can. That doesn't exist because it's a mineral. And so that's why it's such an opportunity to invest into this sector, especially with companies like MFD. And in 2024, it's only going to get even worse, this problem. So we're going to solve the problem to try to bridge the gap to get us from here to here and to here. So just to, again, to move quickly so I can definitely take questions. We have a special way that we do things. It's called MVMP, and that's minimal viable mining process. So traditional mining, and you guys can read, but I'm going to focus on 3 here. If you look at a project timeline, exploration to production usually takes on average about 10 years. Well, when you put some money into something and you don't see any cash flow or anything for 10 years, that's probably not going to get anybody too excited, hence why the market is dried up. We're looking at to go and get the cash flow quickly to pick off projects that have either started or have ended that need just a little bit more capital to get over the hump, and we'll start cash flowing within 12 months. Risk management. Since you got these large projects and you're swinging for the fences, you raise a bunch of money to try to get and show a lot of minerals in the earth without mining them, without producing any cash flow, and then hope and pray some bigger major comes in and buys you, and then everybody makes money in that 10-year time frame. Well, to reduce the risk, we're targeting more lower type sites typically, again, below $10 million or less. And that reduces your risk because we can get permitting quicker, we can produce quicker, is not as much complexity as some of these large mega projects. And then finally, we have a robust exit strategy that we immediately have. So when we have a scoring criteria, when we buy an asset, we know what we want to do to get out of it. And we don't stick with a complex strategy or relying on market timing or anything like that. We're going to make money because we're making money when we buy the asset's already valued more than what we bought it for, and we're getting the cash within 12 to 18 months. And so this is an example of what we're projecting in the MFD portfolio, guys, this is in millions. And so the first year we're raising money, so that's why it's going to be negative cash flow. The goal right now is to raise 7 million for the year. We've already revised that to change it to 10 because we've had such good interest. We've already got, between commitments and actual cash raised, we're already at 7 million or 7.5 million. We just had a large billionaire in Belgium commit $3.5 million to the fund taken up there. And so we decided to pick up another 2. It could dilute us some, but we know we can find all the deals out there. We'll be able to grow that'll make up for that dilution. And so in the second year, the cash flow is expected to be at about 62 million. Some of these were already cash flowing because my partner, Tony Maragakis, had started this well before MFD, and he took his portfolio that he had and placed it in MFD and sold it off for equity shares to investors. What we plan to do is 25% of this, at least 25% of these cash flows are going to be paid out in qualified dividends. Since the entity is set up in Switzerland, what a qualified dividend is dividends that for U.S. citizens, the maximum tax rate is at 15%. So no matter how much qualified dividends you get, you're not going to pay any more than 15%. And it could be even less than that because of the way this thing's structured. All in all, we're expected to generate, with mergers and acquisitions and qualified dividends, roughly about $500 million in cash flow, which 25 to 50% of that will be paid out to investors. The other will go to management and future growth. Any questions so far with that? That's a lot going on here with this chart. Before I move on to some specific projects. Okay.
I'm sorry, I had a question on the M&As.
Yeah.
Can you talk through how that factors into the progression in time that you've shown here? I mean,
yeah, that's a good question. So we projected that some of these we'll land some of these and sell them off. Like for example here, and I'm going to talk about that more in the next chart. But we basically had some different hypotheticals, Abu. We had one that was worst case scenario. We had one that was a conservative type mix, a more moderate, and an aggressive mix. And how we put together these numbers was looking at the conservative mix of cash flow, where there's we want to get blue sky on some of these, and what blue sky is when you have 5-10 times return on investment, and that's why they call it blue sky the limit. That's kind of a mining term. And we're not going to be able to hit home runs like that all the time. We realize that. We also realize that the picks that we make or different assets that we buy may or may not be successful. And so therefore, that's why we like them smaller and more diverse, so you can reduce the risk to the portfolio and to our investors. We're also focused, instead of, like I said, we're focused on actually getting cash flow from these different mine sites or different projects. And so therefore, we do have some projections on how those will be. And then towards the end, we'll either run out of minerals or it'll be sold in some type of M&A activity. This right here is just exploration M&A IPO. What that means is that this is in Morocco, and it's an entity that can provide services to help companies do acquisitions. One of the partners in this is a financier, worked at Goldman Sachs and some others, and he's in Switzerland. And his expertise is in finance and corporate finance. And so he set up this particular entity and think it'll generate some of these kind of returns.
You have another question, Kamar, as well. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Mr. Chukwamaka.
Yeah, go ahead. Chikamaka.
If I
No,
messed it up, I'm sorry in
Chukwumeka.
advance. Please forgive me.
My name is Chukuka. It's so nice to meet you, Kamar.
Thank
Just go back one slide, please.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks for explaining the exploration M&A. That was actually the one I had the question on because it's a big sort of portion of the whole thing, and it's also, and I also didn't understand what it was. So thank you for explaining that. I'm good.
Yeah, because we do assist with that. And I'm going to explain one of we actually got through or about to get through. It's already been publicly announced, so I could talk about it. We got through our first exit, guys. So we bought a mine and we sold it. and that's the name of the game. Now, this was done before MFD was started. This acquisition was I got in around April of last year, and January of 2023, this was bought by Tony, and then he started raising money, and I somehow got in. Tony's the partner, by the way, that actually spearheads most of the MFD activity. As I showed on the business units, I run the consulting side, and he runs MFD, but we both support each other. And eventually, I'll transition more to MFD. Like I said, that's kind of our strategy.
Can you talk about that one deal though, just in terms of your entry, your exit? Are you able to talk about that? Because that's
I am. It's on the screen right here. This was a silica mine in Mongolia, and it's produces silica. We did some exploration, meaning drilling holes to determine what's underneath and how much is it. Just to to explain it in layman's terms, and we were expecting to possibly go to production, but we had a potential buyer that came in. We had interest from the Chinese and some other entities, but or some other governments or companies in companies that are in certain countries in China. But in the end, a company in Canada called Troy Minerals, I can disclose that because it's already public knowledge now, acquired this particular project for a 1-to-1 stocks swap. So for all the shares in this particular project, which was called CBGB, they're giving us one of their shares of Troy Minerals. And so what that means is that the initial founders round was 19 cents a CAD. And now Troy Minerals, which is publicly traded on the Toronto, it's on the Canadian Stock Exchange, symbol TROY, is now trading somewhere around 30 CAD, between 30 to 35 cents CAD. So what that means, that's a 50 to 75% return in 1 year. It's not bad, especially we thought that we were actually wanting to get a little bit more off of this, maybe take it public and then sell it off ourselves. But we saw the opportunity to cash in on this, and we've got some other projects and opportunities that we're looking at, and more activity in Morocco, which we're heavily in, and in Ghana. And so we can use that cash and do something else. We've made money for investors, which is the name of the game. And when we do that, that's going to attract more money and allow us to do more of these kind of deals.
Congratulations. That's awesome. Yeah.
Oh yeah, thanks. And I mean, I wasn't the point on this at all too much. Kind of involved with some fundraising, money raising. But again, like I said, I came in around November as far as into MFD when we started it. And I was an investor in this in April-ish sometime. I put a little bit of money in, and can't wait to cash out. That deal should actually close. It's been announced already, sometime within the next couple of weeks. And then I can sell my shares and do something else. Or I can keep Troy Minerals if I want. I'll probably cash out of some of it though. I mean, 50 to 75%, pretty substantial. And I'll do something else with that. All right, so let's look at a play in Africa that we have.
By the way, you got a question from Emeka.
You have another
Yeah.
question.
Go ahead, guy. This is the last slide, by the way, so chime in, man. Everybody, you could just go on in. Emeka?
Hi, Kamar.
Hey, bud.
Thank you for the opportunity to be on this call and just listen to you talk about your experience and the opportunity general with minerals. But just going back to that last slide,
Yeah, sure.
I'm curious, when you look at your portfolio of assets, I know you had mentioned earlier on that you're
This one or this chart?
Yeah, right here, yes.
Okay. Yeah,
You had
everybody
mentioned that
loves
you're mostly focused on precious metals.
Yes.
How much of your portfolio would you say is precious metals versus the entire thing?
I'd say probably 85%. So gold,
85.
here's gold, silica,
Okay.
silica, gold, and we've got more concentration here. Actually, we got another project in Morocco as well. This has to be updated, but it's so dynamic with buy, sell, that kind of thing. So I would say,
Okay.
you know, gold and silver, and then we got Element 79 that we own a fraction of as well. They produce gold and silver down in Peru. So most of it, like I said, is precious metals for the reasons I said. You know, to build a copper process plant, man, you're looking at $50–100 million capex. We can build a portable gold process plant for $1 million.
Mhm.
And so, and then it's far less complex, and gold's worth more. I mean, it's just worth more. So less digging, less all that kind of less processing, and more money. More rare, obviously, but still very lucrative if you could process it efficiently. I'd like copper, and I want to get into copper, and we can because we've got a Saudi company that's interested in partnering with us. And that comes down to this area here, this M&A. We just got to find a copper mine that fits what they want to do, and that's big money. I mean, they're throwing around at least 150 mil, and you know we would obviously be in a joint venture with them to produce that copper. What you're also probably seeing, by the way, guys, as I'm talking about this, I talked about China, I talked about Saudi Arabia. You may have, I haven't mentioned India or some of these, but what's happening, guys, is a lot of people talk about, you know, and you'll hear probably on the debates night something stupid like drill, baby, drill. Guys, we in the United States produce 25% of the world's oil and gas. We're the #1 producer in oil and gas, and have been that way since the Obama administration. The problem is not oil and gas. We produce plenty of it, and if you look at countries that are friendly to us, towards us, or where I wouldn't say necessarily control, but have strong interest in and strong weight and credibility, probably I'd say 2/3 of the world's oil and gas is either controlled by us or countries that are very friendly towards us that probably would do what we say if we ask. And so on the flip side, though, if you look at copper, if you look at cobalt, if you look at all those types of minerals, we're not even in the top 5. And we're far behind. And can anyone guess who's usually #1 as far as producing those minerals?
China.
Exactly. You know exactly, China. Do you really think China is going to sell? We got to build defense. I failed to mention too, not just infrastructure, electric vehicles, but defense. The new defense weapons and everything require these new minerals and alumina, high purity alumina and everything else. And so if China's producing all these minerals and everything else, they ain't going to sell to us. They're going to say, nope, cutting it off. You guys figure it out. And to me, that is more of a threat than, you know, getting people's feelings and everything, feeding them bullshit that we're struggling with oil and gas. We're not. Got plenty of it. Plenty of it. Plenty of it. Did that answer your question?
Okay, Kamar, one more, just another follow-up question. So again, just with regards to your portfolio and resource allocation, right? So when I look at it, you have 7 projects, and I'm just curious in terms of how do you,
And
when
this
I
is
look
a
at the chart,
snapshot.
right?
This is a
It
snapshot.
suggests,
Yeah.
sorry?
Go ahead. This is a snapshot. This is a snapshot in time. That's dynamic. Give or take, add another 2 or 3 to this.
Right. So my question is around resource allocation. So assuming cash, assuming you raised enough money and so that cash is not a limiting factor, how are you able to prioritize or spread your resources across, multiple projects simultaneously? Are you relying on JV partners, or like how are you able to do it? And because when I think of, as much as many as 5, 6, 7 projects, that's a handful of projects to try to execute at the same time. And I'm just wondering, are they staggered? As like, how do you do the resource allocation, and how do you prioritize if you have to?
Okay. And these are some of these are right now in exploration and small project development. And then some of them we have maybe 20% stake. And some of these is like 100% stake in Morocco. So most of how we do that is we usually use locals in the area. So in Morocco, we've been able to get a foothold there. We had some contacts that's already been in country for 2 or 3 years. And so we have an organization in Morocco. We've got locals that have the expertise to do that, and we're leveraging those people. So we're not just coming in and exploiting these areas. We're hiring locals and want to hire locals because they know the area. It builds a relationship with the local and national governments that we're working with, and it just makes sense. They know the area, and so we use people there in Mongolia. We're using Mongolians a lot of the work. We have some expats, obviously, but that's more of maybe geologists, metallurgists, those kind of things. Those are some of those specialty type of expertise that we need, that we trust too, because those are our people. We trust what our geologists say, not what somebody else may say, especially with making an acquisition. In Alaska, this one we got maybe a 14% stake here, and this is kind of unique. It's a dredge. So a dredge is sort of like a boat. It skims the shallow water underneath the water, and it pulls up this sandy, like murky, muddy type material, and then goes through a process and extracts gold from it. So again, to answer to how we determine where our resources go and where the money go depends on the size of the project, depends on how much control we have over the project, and it depends on the level of comfort we have in the local areas. The project that we're looking at, it's no secret, we're looking at getting into the Ashanti Belt, that's in Ghana. That location, I can't disclose anything else. The Ashanti Belt is so many players there, I can at least say that, but I can't disclose that yet because that acquisition hasn't formally closed yet. But once it does, I'll share that. We'll be there, and that's just to give you an idea. That deposit so far has 500,000 ounces of gold that's been validated through exploration and drilling. And I think as a PEA, which is it's sort of like a study that you can take that says, yeah, the gold is down there. You got to have, and that's worth it. Do the math on that. An ounce of gold is something like $2,000 an ounce. That's how much gold is underneath there. And it costs money to get that gold, so you're not getting all of that money, but it's still, worth at least $1 billion.
Question: how do you track how do you track your minerals as far as the estimation of what you're being able to take in? Like the minute you extract it, what happens to it? Like what tracking and trace systems do you guys have?
That's a good question. And you're talking about physical operation, which the only ones in physical operation right now is this little dredge. But I know how that works, and I can answer that question. So one of the things that when you're extracting minerals, especially in any country, you have to report that to the government. They want to know what's coming, what you're actually getting from under it. And in a lot of entities, like in Morocco, like in Ghana, there'll be royalties paid to the national government to give you permission to mine there. So, and the percentages vary depending on the government. Morocco's very mining friendly. So is Ghana, and these are also very stable governments and very safe areas as well. And so, as you the first thing you do is there's an estimate. So geologists say we think it's this amount of gold underneath there in this area. Then what happens is that you actually mine it and bring it to surface. That's now that's bankable tons, but it's not yet validated. Then you actually process that ore and it turns into some type of either gold product or gold bullion, depending on how far you process it. And then, of course, that's reported to the government as well. So any minerals extracted is very rigorous tracking of that. If you don't track that, and I think this is where you may be headed or asking about, it's called illegal mining. Illegal mining does happen, but at the scale that we're doing it at, we're definitely not mining illegally. We've got legitimate permits. We got agreements with the government, depending on how much royalties we're going to pay out of that. And we got a rigorous tracking system, or would have a rigorous tracking system as far as extracting those minerals out of the earth. So
Thank you. That was exactly what I was
yeah,
going
that is, and a lot of people, that's where some of the ignorance comes in at. They see these videos with little kids with no shovels or anything mining with their hands. I mean, some of that does exist, unfortunately, but a lot of, number one is it's not making hardly any money because you do need big, heavy equipment and everything to really mine effectively. But two, it is illegal. That is somebody else over there exploiting these people, these small villages, and typically, we're fighting to eliminate these guys. A lot of times, it's the local people that are there locally exploiting these kids. You rarely will ever see any multinational company or even guys the size of us to go in and do that. It's not cost effective. And so you're not going to make any money. Just to give you another example, if you look at everybody can picture a tractor trailer load that an 18-wheeler hauls. If you think about that, and let's say that that tractor trailer is full of ore that has gold in it. Okay. Not even including waste. That's dirt that you got to remove just to get to the good dirt. There's bad dirt and good dirt. You got to get to the good stuff. So we got a whole truck full of good stuff inside of one of those tractor trailer containers. You may see out of that enough gold that will equal maybe a gram, maybe 2 grams, maybe 5 to 6 if it's high grade. So you can't mine with your hands, guys. Especially you see these old 49er cartoons and everything, pans and some of that stuff still does exist, but you're rarely going to find gold nuggets. It just doesn't work that way. You have to mine it. You have to process it. And it's a lot of science involved in it and a lot of expertise and a lot of capital, like Tola had said from the beginning.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so this Malent, I've been to this. Go ahead, Abu.
So you have all the Nigerians with their hands up.
Yeah, okay.
But I'm more interested in your story, Kamar.
Yeah, go ahead. If the
maybe
other
a
guys,
difference.
whoever had their hands up first, go ahead and just spit away and ask me
You
questions.
still had your hand up.
Because I see a boo.
All right, I'll go. Kamar, I'm more interested in your story. Maybe we can loop outside of this to kind of connect, pull you into the entrepreneurial group. If that's
Sure.
okay.
I'm in that group too.
Okay.
So yeah, I'd be happy to do.
All right, excellent.
Yeah, do something like that here because it is that too. That's why I connected with there, because a lot of entrepreneurs are trying to raise money. We're trying to raise money, so that's and then I talked to Joel today. He's setting up a PE group, and anybody that's an entrepreneur or in African investments or whatever probably should be involved in that group as well, because you can't go to when you're starting up these kind of things and activities, the bank is not your friend. You have to go to the private equity markets and raise capital. The only time, because in order to get a bankable feasibility study requires millions of dollars, lots of drilling and exploration, where you can take that to a physical bank and they'll give you a nice little loan against it. You got to do a lot of work before you get to that. And MFD probably will sell off that asset or anything else, or unless we grow a lot more before we start doing getting bankable feasibility studies. We'll probably sell before then, or continue to use private equity to raise capital to develop the asset more and more.
By the way, thanks for that. I wanted to ask, any graphite in your pathway in terms of the work you've done before now?
I've seen some pictures on graphite. Right now, we don't, in the horizon, we don't have, as far as I know, any graphite assets we're going after. It is a critical mineral.
Yes.
But there again, graphite is worth a lot less. It requires more earth moving, for the lack of a better word, than to make the same amount of money. And so therefore, right now, it's probably not on our horizon, unless it's a JV that needs some expertise on building the mine. Like the example I gave with the copper, with the Saudi money there.
Right.
I wouldn't probably see us buying a graphite mine at this point. I mean, there's, out of all the things we're looking at, and it's a lot of different things, because you have to look at a lot of deals before actually making a selection. I haven't seen any graphite right now, but it is important though, and it is critical.
Yeah, that's what we understand from, I guess, the EV transition, as well as the military grade stuff that you talked about, which is,
yes,
also needs a bit of that too. It would be good to know, on one of your slides, you sort of mentioned copper, nickel, lithium, silicon.
Yep.
But
I can go back to that.
You know what your focus is.
Yeah, our focus is precious metals.
Is precious metals, okay.
Yeah,
Because
and the reason being, the reason being is because of costs, capital, the capex.
Yeah,
I like this.
Explain. Yeah.
This graph, I like this graph because overall, from a macro standpoint, as far as the industry of mining, I think this story that I've got on the screen will attract capital and cash that will still also go over to precious metals as well.
Right. Understood.
Question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, everybody just jump in, man.
If someone wanted to get involved in, like, if you were starting from scratch again, which direction would you go in?
Wow.
in today's age?
I would probably, be honest. I mean, if I started over there, I got to go all the way back 18 years when I first started doing management consulting. And that's how I got plugged into this opportunity, because I already had knowledge in the industry and I had contacts in the industry. So the starting over, starting from scratch would have to go 18 years back. I would invest with people that know what they're doing.
Thank you.
Trying to do this, it's too many. You can see already the different people involved: metallurgists, geologists, project engineers, procurement and contract guys, consultants, money, family offices, software guys. I mean, it's so many different moving parts, and how I got involved with it again is through what this group is all about. We network, right? Well, the guy that got me in this and then off partnership, not only it was, I knew him. I knew him. We worked together well in Greece. We had a relationship. We have a relationship, and we always talked about working together without the aggravation and agitation of the idiots that were above us, that was in our way, slowing us down. And that literally is what happened. Man, if these guys wasn't in our way, imagine what we could do. And he took the plunge 2 or 3 years before me, and got some things started and organized, and then said, "Hey, I want you to be with me with this. On this consulting piece, you have a pretty substantial percentage, 50-50. And on MFD, I want you involved in it, at least at a management level, even if you don't invest a nickel," which I did invest some money. Not a lot, not big money like that, because I didn't have big money like that. But I've got some skin in the game, definitely. So that would be my advice. Go with people that know what they're doing. We already got structure and organization already in place. We have 200 plus years experience in this. Even though this is an industry that will probably take off from a macro level, you can still get burned if you pick and choose the wrong projects or get
What
involved
about
with.
sovereignty nations? Like, I'm sorry, if a sovereignty nation like comes in and say, "Hey, we want our mines back," um, do they
That's a,
do they have the ability to cut you off pretty much, or no?
Absolutely. And that's called
Oh,
nationalizing the asset. That's one of the reasons why you pay attention to the geopolitical climate. You remember that I talked about, I said Mongolia, or excuse me, Morocco, specifically to Africa. I said Morocco's government friendly, Ghana government friendly. Chances of them nationalizing those assets are probably slim to none. You go to certain other areas, though, even South Africa at one point was sort of not a high risk, but they did have some factions talking about nationalizing things. And I know for a fact, with projects in Africa, money was sitting on the sideline until after that election. That's why I told her I was familiar with what was going on over there, because I was watching it too, because I got a deal on the line that is pending on funding. And two out of the 5 investors that they were looking at said, "I'm waiting until after this election." Because the last thing they want is anybody talking about nationalizing an asset.
so does
China
insurance
has
pay you
done
back?
that to
Do you
people
get your
before.
funding back?
What's that?
So
No,
you don't get your funding back, or it's just a loss?
no, it's like Pac-Man, game over. Hey, we're
Oh
coming
wow.
in, we're new and that's what scares investors, and that's why you got to be careful with certain areas that you go in, and make sure governments are stable, or at least to the point where they're not going to do anything like that. And that's why it's to your best interest to work with the community when you come into the different, maybe underdeveloped nations. You want to be, you want to have a partnership with the different stakeholders, like the community. It's not all about just shareholders, but it's also the stakeholders, like the community, like the environment, like the geopolitical climate there. All that is something you have to watch out for and manage and assess the risk at all times, because you can get wiped out pretty quickly if you've invested all these millions and then all of a sudden they get nationalized. And
Thank
it's
you.
typically not much you can do about that unless it gets to the point, let's say, where that it's a critical mineral that has a substantial amount of that critical mineral coming from that country. Probably the United States and some other people would probably step in and support a coup of some sort, and not to, you know, say that the U.S. is. I mean, these things happen. Governments do get together and try to topple other governments through cynical ways, because it's a lot at stake, and vice versa. Maybe a China or Russia or something like that will do the same thing. They may be trying to do the same thing. These kind of games. So you want to make sure that you're supporting in partnership and really embracing the community so these things won't happen. They only happen when the people are getting misused and abused. That's usually when you see those kind of things happen. It happened in Venezuela as well. The Venezuelan government nationalized the oil fields and oil rigs off its coast, and that was it. Kick these people out. Game over. You hear the Pac-Man, do do do. That's exactly what happens. So that's the risk when you're operating in different parts of the world.
Yeah, I remember back in Idi Amin days, Uganda did it to all the Indians. And that's how we got these Patels showing up in the US, who now own a lot of the little hotels and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, that's happened there. The Indian money is starting to come back into South Africa and part of that region. Zimbabwe's changed now.
Yeah.
And they're starting to try to attract more foreign money. I know a Canadian company's got a gold mine there, and they're actually producing. So as Mugabe eventually died, and it was starting to drift back that way. I think, you know, foreign partnership is not always a bad thing. I don't think it should be where you just exploit the people and take everything and leave nothing. That's bad too. But I think it's almost difficult for a country to nationalize itself, especially unless they've got the expertise and everything. And even then, it's going to be difficult. It's going to take money at some point again, and human capital. And most of the time, the country doesn't have all the human capital necessary to do these kind of complex operations.
Do you guys do any CSR to sort of help your bonding with the community so you don't have any issues?
Yeah, those kind of activities, and I'm not, my expertise isn't in that. I've participated in some type of things, but as far as spearheading that, but I'm sure they do most of the time. That's part of in your readiness plan. And what I mean by readiness, before you go into operation or or before you start to develop an area, the community is part of that plan. It's an intricate part. Right. I developed a management operating system, and that's one of the swim lanes is community engagement.
Right. I mean, even from the ESIA and early days, you would have had to make sure that nobody is being affected. There's a need for off-takers for graphite mine that we just are in the process of doing a partnership with. So it'd be good to talk to you offline to see.
Yeah, let's do it, man. I mean, we can possibly get involved. Like I said, we can offer lend some critical human capital expertise.
Right. The guys
have
about 12,000 metric tons that they need to move, and they only have off takers for about 2,000. So, you know, just wanted to give you that as a high level.
Yeah.
But there's other conversations that would love to have, because we, my partner and I, Abu invited us to the call. This is Emeka I'm talking about now. We run a firm called Race Course Capital. So we're investment bankers. We're both ex-Goldman from
Yeah,
many.
you know the game.
Yeah, but we're relatively new to mining. We've done oil and gas. You know, Emeka was a wireline engineer back in the day with Schlumberger. We've worked on the continent and here in the States, but in the more recent period, just looking at the numbers, especially when you think of energy transition, and you know, $1 trillion a year needs to be spent until 2030, and then after that, it's a $42 trillion economy till 2040. So between 2030 and 2040, so much money needs to be spent in this space. So we started sharpening our pencils, and before we know it, we had you know, a miner lined up in Africa through our partners in South Africa. We're now trying to work with them to get offtake here. So
yeah, I'd love to talk, man. We love mining. Like I said, we support. We don't do oil and gas directly, but we do support those projects too, because of the kind of expertise we have. We can build things. And so, yeah, we're also talking.
You guys do feasibility studies and business plans, things like that?
We can manage the feasibility study.
Okay.
We don't do them,
Okay.
you know, but we can manage that process because it is a process.
Yeah, I was just curious because of your consulting arm, because we've got, sometimes we might be working on oil and gas deal, and someone says, can you help me with a, you know, gas to methane or gas to God knows what, you know, feasibility study. And then we're finance, right? We're always looking for the technical folks to then take that over.
Right. Yeah, we can manage it. We can definitely manage it. You know, there's experts there. We can make sure you get through it. I'm gonna define what a feasibility study is for the group, by the way. I know we're talking. What that is, guys, is that before you even start a project, any kind of project, especially oil and gas or where you're extracting something or mining, you have to prove that this project is viable. You just can't come in and say, hey, we think it's this. It has to be proven and vetted and everything else. And so that feasibility study goes through all these different things and different aspects to give confidence to banks and everybody else that it is what you're saying it is. That study tells you that, and it's a lot of capital to generate a feasibility study. You have pre-feasibility studies, you have feasibility studies, then you even have bankable feasibility studies at all different levels.
Kamar, if I could, I would like to ask you about deal structuring. And I would imagine that, you know, for an entrepreneurial venture, that's somewhat limited in amount of capital you have as of now, as of this stage, versus the number of opportunities that come your way that you see. I'd imagine that you've run into situations where you see attractive opportunities, but you don't quite have the full amount required to buy into it or invest. So I'm just curious how you structure it. I've seen structures where, for example, you could stage the investment where, you know, maybe if it's a $10 million investment, for example, the first stage is $1 million. It's kind of like a commitment fee that allows you, effectively give you an option to invest in the second stage and third stage, depending on how the geo results go and things like that. So I'm just curious. My hunch is that as an entrepreneurial venture, you'd have, that balancing act that you've had to, go through and navigate, if you will. I'm just curious to hear from you from a structuring standpoint, how creative you've been, and how do you manage, taking possession of attractive opportunities when on the cash side you may not necessarily have the full amount to invest.
Okay. So how we structured ours, our first round was a founders round, kind of friends and family founders round. And the portfolio was valued at, and this has been a third party accounting firm, valued it at about $30 million. Again, Tony was doing a lot of work before I got in. And so he wanted to sell off some of that. And so we had a $30 million valuation of the portfolio, and we sold off 10% of it at a $10 million valuation. Okay, so what that means is that, let's say you bought the whole 10% for $2 million. That $2 million is really worth $3 million because the asset's worth $30 million, not 10. So you offer a discount to entice investors in the early rounds. Typically, a lot of people, especially our folks, rarely get involved or get invited to a founders round. Like I said, I just had a relationship with him, with Tony, where I could get into that. The second round, which we still currently have open, is now selling off another 10%, but that's valued at $5 million, or excuse me, the valuation's at 28.5. So it's about a 15% discount now. But still below the 30 million that it's worth. And probably with this new investment or infusion of cash that we have, we're probably going to start selling at full valuation, which will be kind of a third round. And it'll just be whatever the value of the portfolio is. We won't have to discount anymore because we don't need to entice people to get us started. We've already got started. We've got some money. We're making some acquisitions. We've done a exit already. So the money raising is starting to get easier and easier. What my goal is, and that's why I wanted to share this, is to allow our folks to get into these deals, because we never get invited to them. We just don't. We don't get invited to them unless you're in the inside. And I'm in the inside, and I just so happen to be us. And so I want us to get involved in these as well. They're well before they go public and everything else. And that's when the money is made. Just to give you an idea, these are called alternative investments. And there's an outfit called Equity Trust, because you can also invest IRA or qualified money into this. There's a way you can do that is through self-directed IRAs that'll allow you to do these kind of investments. But this company that an Equity Trust is setting up those accounts for us, for people that want to do that. They done a study, and they said the ultra high net worth individuals has 50% of their assets in alternative investments. Quite the contrary on everybody else in mutual funds and everything else. So the most richest of rich people invest this way. They make money right from the beginning, not putting money in and hoping and praying they make money later. So I want to throw that out there.
It's a very, very important point. Thank you for making it. And
Thank you very much for that. Thanks for that, Kamar.
Thank you for not being an Uncle Tom. We appreciate it.
No, I said, man, I want my folks in, and I first went to my neighbor, and I lowered the amounts for just individuals. Now institutions, they go back up. For individuals, I lowered the amount to 25K minimums.
Right.
And I said, I want our guys to get into this too, man, because we never freaking get involved. We never get invited to this party.
Yeah.
Kamar, can I ask you a question? Is it a reason why you don't?
And the Swiss and these guys, there's not a lot of Americans in it, so the Swiss are more progressive in these kind of things.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Kamar, if you don't mind me asking one question, is there a reason why you don't have anything established in the States, or is it easier for you to set up overseas because of regulatory compliance?
We're actually looking at acquiring. Actually, we've already got the money. They want to acquire it, but we got to do a little bit of homework on it. But it's an asset in the West Coast.
Okay.
And it's gold. And we're looking into that. It's a project that closed. Again, like I said, a lot of these they things happen, they go wrong, run out of money. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for these steals, and there's a lot of steals out there that we can get. In fact, I was at a conference in Canada, and it was a guy named Robert Kiyosaki. I know y'all have heard of him. Rich Dad Poor Dad guy. He was there at a mining convention, and that's what he said. He was like, "I'm looking for deals." And also another guy from Shark Tank, I forgot his name, the bald guy. He goes to mining conferences and conventions.
Kevin O'Leary.
Yeah, O'Leary. He's there a lot looking for, because they're looking for value investing. These guys like to make money when the deal closes, not put money in and hope and pray that it makes money later. And so he was there, man. He was there sitting down, listening to like everybody else. And I had a lot of words with him. I talked to him for a good, at least good 15 minutes. So yeah, you got prominent investors like that. It's just, again, knowing what you're doing. That's the problem. And I think that's the problem we solve at MFD. We have the expertise and the know-how to make money at this.
Thank you so much, Kamar. Man, this was amazing.
Absolutely.
Trying to look and see if I got any. Yeah, if anybody wants to talk with me offline, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Most of us already are connected. I try to connect with all the people on here. So reach out to me and let's get something on the calendar and we can talk more. It can be, if you want to learn more about this, I can break down some other things, how, mining works and anything like that. Again, this part of my mission is to is not only get our people more involved in this area, and the African guys already know this because a lot of them are familiar with the mining industry, oil and gas, these kind of things. But as far as Americans go, African Americans, we just don't get involved in this kind of stuff. We're not involved in oil and gas like this. We're not involved in mining at all, hardly. We just don't know about it. And again, haven't been invited to this kind of party. So the invitation is now there. And even from an educational standpoint, I'm more than willing to do that. And invite you to different sessions that talk about different opportunities. But I think it's a huge opportunity out there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
All right, sir.
And I want to apologize to you as well. I'm sorry, Mr. Chuka, if I messed up your name. I do apologize about that, sir. Please forgive me in advance.
No problem.
Yeah, Kamar, you killed it. Thank you so much. Guys, we pretty much know how to find each other. But Abu, please bring them on to yours because this is next. This
Yeah,
is definitely
absolutely.
something.
Yeah, you can put me on the schedule for on the entrepreneur side. Like I told Tola, man, just put me down. I'll be there. I'll present. We love mining. Um,
I have a
I'm
CFO,
yeah.
Lanico Metals, coming on August 6th. They just got financing for their mines here in Canada, so I think we should check with them.
I wonder if it was the Skeena deal, but it could be. But yeah, that's yeah, you should have
Was
those guys.
DOD.
Hmm?
DOD gave 14 or so $0.4 million to two miners.
Oh yeah,
Lomico was one of them.
nice.
So that's going to be good to hear from them directly what they're doing with the
That
grant.
money goes a long way, guys.
Yeah, I think it's actually a grant. I don't even think it's an
Oh yeah.
investment. Yeah, because defense, Department of Defense has a budget and they need, they need help, right? They
Told you. Yeah, and even the Biden administration, and it doesn't matter. It's going to be the Biden administration. Both of these guys are going to do it. So we don't have that political risk. Both administrations going to mind. The Biden administration just helped out a project called South 32, a company called South 32. There's a project in Arizona. Push that thing through. Push that. It's near a tourist area. And they're mining copper, pushed it through because they need the minerals, man. They came and the military's come to them and said, man, we need these weapons. This is how much copper we got. This is how much copper we got. This is how much copper we need. We got a shortfall. And they got it done. If you heard of uranium's used obviously for nuclear power plants and nuclear missiles, things like that. We buy a percentage of our uranium for Russia. How scary is that? They can cut us off anytime.
Really?
Yeah. Only reason why they still doing it is because they need money. So
Wow.
we're actually supporting Ukraine's right positions with money and weapons, and we're giving money to the Russians for uranium, which they're taking to fight the Ukrainians. You can't make this stuff up, guys. And that's
Are you serious? Like, is this legit? Like, is there like a trail behind this?
The United States, man. Hey, we're kind of ruthless, man.
No, and I could support what you're saying, Kamar, because I actually, during the pandemic, I worked at a uranium processing facility. We actually was building a project, and that's what they was talking about, that a lot of where the money they had to buy stuff from Russia. So Trump he actually put a lot of money into building a project where we could start doing some stuff ourselves in the country. So
yeah,
I
they've started up a lot of uranium projects in Wyoming, guys. I mean, they pushed those permits through. Uranium a lot in Wyoming. They got the state. They don't even have to go to the federal government. They can approve it, and those things are cropping up because they need uranium. And then also, guess who else needs uranium? Is these AI for AI technology. Bill Gates just got into the power business, guys. He's building
in Wyoming, yes.
He's building a nuclear power facility, a small one, so he can supply energy for his power plant.
So that's getting built in Wyoming, Cheyenne. Like, I've been there. I've seen that location personally.
So sexy Microsoft cool products going into energy, and it's boring stuff that people call boring. Google, all those guys are doing that, and so that's why this man. I need to be in this heavy, and mining, energy. It's all together. If you're in anything that's supporting the world's energy, which mining does, which oil and gas, all that stuff, you're in the right area, and it could be very lucrative.
Man. Thank you so much, Kamar. I did not, some things I didn't, I'm baffled a little bit what you said about the Russia thing. That took me back a little bit.
Yeah, it took me back too when I heard about it when I was in Switzerland at a conference, and I said, "Wait a minute, you got to be kidding me!" It was something like 25% of our uranium was being bought from Russia. Man, it's crazy, absolutely crazy.
So
they want
why
to cut
did
it
we
off.
do? Why do we do stuff like that and then give them money afterwards?
Because
You pay like
we're
all of this
ruthless.
money.
We don't have the uranium. The supply is so critical, and it's in such short supply that we'll spend money with our enemies that we're spending money to fight against them just to get it. And so, don't you? That's why I said this industry. With that chart I showed you that had the demand of cobalt and all that, the money is going to come from somewhere, and I don't care where it comes. I mean, it's going to come from somewhere, and it's going to support any kind of projects like this. And so, tell young people that's in STEM or whatever, look at these areas. If you're complaining about making money, get involved in this, because there's a shortage of human resources too. There's not enough people to do this kind of work, and that's why we got a Mine Plus and those kind of things to supply that gap.
That's all the questions from me, sir. You killed this. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. If
No
anybody
problem.
else has questions, please ask away.
Yeah, and we can share this with the group too, and then they
Of course.
the brothers that wouldn't be able to see it, and then maybe I can get a copy of it and I'll put it on my YouTube channel or something. I got some other stuff
I
that
will get you a copy of this by tomorrow, sir.
yeah, because I had some other people. I wanted just to add the brothers here. I didn't, and so I didn't invite. There was a lot of other people that was asking to join, but I just wanted us so we can speak candidly and everything else like we do, like brothers do.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
All right,
And I appreciate it. Anybody have any other questions?
Good for
No
now.
questions, just grateful. So
Yes.
definitely grateful for you, Kamar. Definitely
Yeah.
will be reaching out to you, a little bit more education as far as best practices and breaking into the field.
Right. And then
Much
I would
appreciated.
also advise too, with alternative investments, people can use IRA money. There's a lot of IRA money out there sitting in nothing, Vanguard or something like that they've done a rollover, went to another company. You can really diversify your portfolio in investments like this. But what a lot of times will happen if you try to go to, let's say, a Merrill Lynch, they say, yeah, we got that. And it's stuff that's already been developed a long time ago. And you're going to get like an 8% return, something like that. Nobody's interested in that. And that's not how these guys do it. When I mean these guys, the family offices, and these ultra high net worth individuals or other PE firms that take a look at this kind of stuff, they're not looking for those. Those are just glorified mutual funds. That's all they are. I know because I've worked in these houses too before, selling some of that stuff. So.
Thank you so much, Kamar. I appreciate this 100%. What's interesting is I think you should do an entire breakdown of just the monetary side of this, because the amount of people that do not know how to get funding, then you let us know that we can use. You know how many times people have been laid off and rolled over their IRA or their 401k? You're telling me you can literally put this into this segue and have it sit and collect at the same ratio as I would with a new company I would go to.
Absolutely. I got two people already doing it. I came up with that idea. Now, I mean, because of my background, and I talked to a couple of guys that some jack, and I wanted to keep the risk down. I said, look, man, let's take, so you got an IRA somewhere. And I knew he did because he just left Cox. He said, yeah, I got it. It's not doing anything. And I said, yeah, use some of that. And we're not trying to get there because it's still tax advantages to it. It's only 50, it's qualified dividends only. But it's stuff that it's long-term money anyway. You ain't doing anything with it. Commit some of that into this. And then I figured out who can do them. I got a guy at Equity Trust now that send all the people that want to do it that way. I send it to him, and he takes care of them and gets it done. So
that's a game changer right there. That is a game changer.
And that's an easier way to raise money too for any ventures. You can do that. Your financial advisor is going to tell you that you can't, but they're not. They either don't know or lying. Probably number one, don't know. But again, this is where the big money's at, or the ultra high net worth individuals do. That's how they invest. They invest a little differently.
So you're telling me all of us on this call, if we all take our 401ks, we can subsidize this into what you're doing,
It can't be a 401k plan. It can't be a
Oh,
401k plan. It only can be an IRA, or let's say you left a company and you had money in a 401k plan, you never rolled it over. You can enroll that money over into a self-directed IRA, a special self-directed IRA, I should say, and then invest into anything you want, real estate, casinos, whatever, horse racing. I don't know, whatever you want. That's what they don't tell you. And the reason why they don't tell you that, because they can't make any money off of it. I know, I was in that game. They can't make a commission.
So guys, if you don't know, we should be playing back this video for other tips as well. This is very informative, man. I am definitely writing some notes down just around that part right there, because when I left my corporate job, I actually put my money into Bitcoin, and at the time it was a smart move, but now it's like a moving asset. So I've always tried to figure out ways to put it in a more stable environment. So what you're talking about,
you should have been able to buy the Bitcoin inside the IRA without triggering a taxable event, by the way, because you can invest in the cryptocurrency too, if you want to, without triggering it coming out of that shell. But
man, thank you so much, man. I have no more questions. Does anyone have any questions, please?
No, but just to thank you. And Kamar, we'll continue on LinkedIn. I sent you, we're already connected there, and we'll schedule some time to do a one-on-one. But thank you very much, Tola.
I'll put my email in here again too.
Okay.
LinkedIn is only one Kamar Jones out there that looks like me. So
Kamar, do you want me to drop your presentation in the chat too as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think that'd be a good idea, so people can. I think so.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll do that as soon as we're done with this.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right, guys.
Okay, bye.
All right, thank you guys, man. I appreciate everyone. Have a great day.
No problem. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you.